looked at the youth behaviors. This comes from the Missouri Student Survey, so these are high school students and middle school students that are surveyed annually in Missouri. And we see an estimated 53% of youth in Boone County believe it would be easy to get alcohol. That is higher than we see in other communities. The best example I can think of would be like a ladies' night, which, by the way, could be even outside of this considered discriminatory. The free samples or tastings of any alcoholic beverage. An increase in the volume of alcoholic beverage contained in a serving without increasing proportionally the normal retail price for such alcoholic beverage based on increased volume. That's a mouthful. So this is an important aspect of this ordinance as well. In order to determine whether or not it's being discounted, you have to establish a normal retail price. So in this section of the draft ordinance, we say that it shall mean the regularly established drink price charged by the licensee for each alcoholic beverage sold on the premises, and which is the amount charged to the customer for no less than 70% of the alcoholic beverage sales occurring within a week. Once established, the normal retail price shall be effective for a period of at least 1 week before it may be changed by the licensee. The normal retail price shall be set forth in writing and shall meet the following minimum requirements. Include the serving size, include the normal retail price, contain the effective date of the price, must be available on the licensed premises where the sale of alcoholic beverages is occurring, and shall be provided to any customer or agent of the city upon request. The exception, which is section 4, says it shall not apply to private catered special events conducted on private property pursuant to a written contract between the licensee and the event sponsor, which has been executed at least 24 hours in advance of the catered event, for which the event sponsor pays a flat fee to the licensee and there's no admission fee charged to attendees on the date of the event.
I take personal offense that I can't go into tropical liqueurs and try 3 different flavors before I decide what I want to purchase for a frozen beverage. Or once it reaches the Boone County limits, can't go and taste test 3 wines before I purchase a bottle of wine from that location. So I take personal offense at this. I certainly understand the greater problem, but I also know that DARE program was in the Columbia Public Schools successfully for 20 years, making a huge impact when that program was dropped because Columbia Public Schools felt it was more important for those police officers to just be working in the school instead of working in a preventative manner. So I think we need to look at things like that in our community if we want to address things like this and trying to find something to just business owners to attack. Thank you.
As far as this has gotten thus far with public comment or with public debate and also what the city staff has done so far, it almost seems to me that this is a settled matter. What floors me is that 0 business owners were called in consultation with this. What floors me is that no economic data or impact studies have been conducted for downtown Columbia. What I'm positive of, of course I have no data on this, but this is my supposition, I'm sure that this is unlikely to reduce binge drinking and it actually encourages drinking in student housing and in other avenues. I'm certain that alcohol abuse and use in general is a society level problem that's fueled by influences far outside our control, and that this drink specials ordinance will do 0 to meet. I'm also sure that this ordinance makes the relative package price at the retail stores higher, or a better deal rather than what they are now for given bar prices, and that will encourage people to simply go home and to use airplane bottles and so forth in bars, making our problems greater. I think that this also removes essential sales tools for our business. First is that, and this has been talked about already, the sampling of craft beer and other items. These are essential tools that are considered an industry courtesy. And I don't think there's in any way that samples promote binge drinking, for the size amounts are just too small. Moreover, the idea is that we would ban things like group discounts, charity implications for bar crawls and pub crawls in general. I think it's crazy. And I think most people would agree with me. Moreover, I think that this report and the ordinance ignores something that's important, and that's consumerism in general in the United States. Everyone expects value. I know that when I go to buy my clothes, I buy them on sale. When I buy my car, I don't pay sticker. And I don't think that people want to do that with their drink and their food prices either. And so that's why we have deals in this town. That's why we have deals after 9 p.m. even. And I just think that overall this makes unenforceable regulations that the city, the police department and so forth have no ability to control. They have no ability to enforce already. The dollars are already stretched too thin. Overall, I think the regulatory environment in the ordinance is, it sets us up for gotcha enforcement. It sets us up for logs that we can't keep up with as small business owners, that you can come in and now tell us we have violated the law, we have done something wrong. For those reasons, I oppose this, and I think a lot of other people do. And most of the comments tonight have echoed that. I would encourage the city staff to involve business owners more intimately in this process if it's going to go.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Watson. I live downtown at the Niedermeyer Building, 920 Cherry Street, and I work at Gumby's Pizza as the bar manager, 1201 East Broadway. And with my unique position, living and working downtown, being nocturnal, seeing the late night crowd, I understand the concern. I really, really do. There are fights that break out underneath my window when I'm at home, and when I'm at work, I often have to separate people or wake people up because they have overindulged or whatever. I have to refuse service to people with fakes. This is something that I see every day that I work, and I spend 35 to 45 hours behind a bar each week. So I really do understand the concern, but it has gotten worse over the last few years as luxury student apartments have been allowed to run amok and just come up everywhere on every single corner. But really, it's focusing on drink specials. I'm afraid that this isn't going to help the issue, because whenever I see people come in after bars at Gumby's, because even though I pull alcohol off the table at 1:30, when students are in town, we are open till 3 a.m. So I see the after bars crowd, and often it is not the people who are getting drink specials that are causing the issues, that I'm calling the cops on. It's the people who just order whatever they want. The people who have the drink specials and take advantage of those are the calm customers. They're the ones who really want to get, as someone said right before me, a value for their dollar. They want to feel as if they are part of a community, and that's what a bar really is a group of people coming together to socialize, and that's a great thing. Whenever we start limiting drink specials, it's going to force people, as has been mentioned, to drink at home before, to drink airplane bottles, bring those into bars, which makes our jobs harder as bartenders, because we cannot accurately judge how intoxicated a person is. It's already somewhat of an issue, but I see a lot of people behind me that I recognize, and a lot of us are bartenders. That is our job, is to recognize how drunk someone is and refuse service when it is that is the responsible choice. But introducing this or proposing this ordinance, I think will actually intensify the issue, because the people, like I said, who are causing the issues are not the ones taking advantage of drink specials. They're the ones who are actually paying more. I see a lot of people who have fakes that I refuse service to brag about. I'm sure everyone in here could name at least 3 bars that they have seen someone be served with a fake. I have heard countless stories of someone saying, oh yeah, I just hand the door guy my credit card, not even a fake ID, a credit card, just so the cameras look like I'm checking an ID. There are certain bars that we could all name that do serve to underage individuals and overserve also to underage individuals, but also of age individuals. So I understand the problem, but I'm just afraid that limiting drink specials is just going to intensify the issue. It's going to push people who want a value on their drinks out of bars. It's going to force more people to drink more at home and then come into bars, and it's a slippery slope, honestly, and it's going to make our jobs as bartenders harder, and it does honestly feel like an attack on businesses as well, because we are not being trusted to do what is already our job.
Hi, I'm John Stansfield, 1852 Cliff Drive, proud resident of, I think, the 6th Ward. I don't own a bar. I don't go to bars that have penny pitchers or do the drink specials or anything like that. But what I do want to say is that if limiting human freedom made societies better off, North Korea would be a paradise. So,
My name's Heather Harlan, 302 Locke Lane, Ward 4. Thank you for having this hearing. I am a certified reciprocal prevention specialist. A couple of things. I think we are all here because we could agree that the downtown area has a problem with violence, vandalism, and vomit. So we want to look at ways that would be effective to deal with that. We dropped DARE because DARE doesn't work. People looked at the research and it doesn't work. It was a popular program, but it didn't work. It didn't, in fact, the numbers tended to increase. Prevention is about creating something where the drinking doesn't happen, the over-drinking doesn't happen in the first place. It's not reacting to it. It's so that the over-drinking, over-consumption doesn't happen. And we have learned, we actually know more about effective prevention than we do effective treatment. It is a slow, methodical process, and there is some science to it, believe it or not. But the reason I heard a lot of comments here today about, well, what about this, or why don't we do all this, and it's a bigger picture. This is a small intervention to see if it makes a difference. There's lots of research that indicates it might. We don't have a crystal ball to know for sure that it will, but we can agree, again, that we have a problem with violence, vandalism, and vomit. Where do we begin? This is a place to begin. How will it be enforced? Voluntary enforcement. I think, I could be wrong, but I think bar owners will be very alert to where if their neighboring bar is selling at a drink special when they're not supposed to be. This evens the playing field automatically at one point in time. If you want to allow your neighbor to do that and undercut you, you certainly can. If you want to alert someone to that, you could do that as well. Effective prevention does not end the problem. It simply makes the numbers go down. We still have tuberculosis. That's a public health and safety issue, but we've made the numbers go down. So if there's anyone that says, well, that won't keep anyone from doing it, they're absolutely right. There will be people who overdrink. The point of effective prevention will be to make the numbers go down, and that we're working on getting the data to do that. Columbia, Missouri is already by the CDC specified, has been described as the drunkest city in Missouri in the 2017 report. Often we are offered the idea that, well, we just educate people, bring awareness. We know from prevention, again, from decades, that the least effective intervention we can do is educate people. It does not change behavior. That's what we're looking for, is behavior change. Humans are most responsive when we affect their pocketbook to affect behavior change. That's why the City Council is looking at this. And I think we should tread carefully if the City Council or bar owners or anyone is forcing people to drink at home. When did that become the responsibility of the bar owners to keep people from drinking at home, or the City Council? We are not forcing people to drink anywhere. I hope we'll reconsider and not use that argument. Finally, years ago, when the City of Columbia passed a smoke-free ordinance, we heard from bar owners that bars were going to close left and right, and it would affect the business district terribly. Absolutely no bars closed.
It's disingenuous at best.
Put your facts together.
It was not the disaster predicted. And many people enjoy having a smoke-free environment to work and to drink if they choose. So I will continue to respect your comments. I would ask for the same.
My name is Gabriel Jacobs. I live at 47 Broadway Village Drive, in the 6th Ward. I am a graduate student at the University of Missouri. I'm a regular at Dundee's, thank you, Bonnie. less than a decade ago, well, excuse me, let me back up a little. During the questions phase, I heard a lot, this isn't aimed at addressing underage drinking specifically, it's aimed at addressing excessive drinking. And I don't think you can just separate the two of them like that. A big part of excessive drinking is people who are underage or who just turned 21, whose brains are still developing, who are enjoying the freedom of being out from under mom and dad's wings, who maybe haven't built healthy and responsible drinking habits yet, who are likely to drink to excess. And less than a decade ago, as I was saying, I was a dumb undergrad. I'm not ashamed to admit that I drank before I turned 21 in a different state. Don't come after me. And I can tell you from that not so long ago experience, it was never about being able to get a couple bucks off a pitcher. No, it was about the availability of alcohol, where I could get it from without risking getting in deep doo-doo. It's not if we're looking to address that part of the issue, which is a substantial part of the issue, underage drinking by undergraduates, just gonna throw them under the bus a little, who aren't the most responsible drinkers. We can't pretend like they're the ones relying on specials. When I was an undergraduate, I lived in the dorm. I didn't have bills and rent to pay. I didn't work a regular job. I still don't really. I'm a grad student. But I didn't have to budget the same way a lot of grown adults do. I was less worried about, saving a couple bucks when I wanted to have a beer with dinner. So I think this is a little bit mistargeted, and I'll, defer to the bartenders and bar owners.
Jesse Garcia, 1925 East Broadway, I live in the 2nd Ward. I just want to address the entirety of what this proposal was based on was to say that there was a problem with underage drinking and binge drinking in Columbia, and that the city council should address this issue as if it's part of their purview, and that's what we elected them to do in the first place. But they took it on their benevolent grace that this is a problem that we want to actually try to solve. First, I want to call to point the data that you brought up. Every bit of the data that you brought up has not had any valid references showing that it works. There is no data that you brought up at this point in any of your sample cities showing that these kinds of ordinances actually address the issue of underage drinking or binge drinking anywhere. Currently, Missouri is ranked 35th out of 50 states, according to the CDC website that everyone seems to be citing. You yourself in the question phase said that we're at 20% of our people, while the national average is about 19.4%, and that, surprisingly enough, is about the average that we have here in Missouri. About 19.8% of Missourians say that they drink to excess, regardless of whether they're in college or not. Let's call into fact all the sample cities. Every single one of the sample cities that you cited is ranked worse according to the CDC, especially Iowa, where we got a lot of the same wording. It was ranked worse in every category. So the fact that you're saying that these kinds of ordinances would somehow lessen binge drinking, or that this ordinance would somehow target the specific problems we're having here, I'll call into question the data all day. Secondly, I'd like to say that in regards to whether or not we actually have a problem here in Columbia, I want to call into question the data that you used on that again. You're saying that 20% of Columbia. Well, if I'm looking at Columbia as about 120, 130,000 people, I think it was listed as 118,000 on our site. With all the college students in town making up about 30% of that population, and only half of those people being old enough to drink, you're telling me that 70% of the people that you interviewed said that they had committed binge drinking. Well, that puts it at an even smaller number. So by my math, you're looking at a group of people that you interviewed at a college campus. That puts it somewhere in the neighborhood of what, 5,000 people, and 70% of those people said that they might have had a binge drinking incident in their life. So now we're down to about 3,500 students that you said, I don't think that actually represents the adults that live in Columbia. Columbia doesn't seem to have any worse problem than anywhere else does with drinking. The last thing I want to say is when it comes to whether or not you think we have a problem downtown, I would disagree that we have a violence problem downtown. Violence is down 40%. That's according to the police department's own math. They released that last year, and our crime is down overall downtown. It's a fine, safe place to be. What I do think is important to look at is in 2012, according to the CDC, that's whenever we were at our highest point of excessive drinking reports. Our own ATF got downsized to just 5 agents, and it's turned over all alcohol enforcement to local and state. At that same time, we started increasing the student population downtown, and you know what we've done since then? We actually bootstrapped our own police department and haven't given them the support they need to enforce the laws that are already on the books. We don't have any cops left downtown at all. We're down to 2, if we're lucky, at night for enforcement. So you kind of created your own mess here, where you invited all these students to live downtown, and now you say that they're too drunk because they live downtown next to all the bars. You're insinuating somehow that all the bars are the problem with this over alcohol consumption, when in fact, you have no data to support that they got drunk at the bars, or they got drunk in their home and then they went to the bar, or they're just spilling out into the street drunk. We should be supporting our law enforcement to do the job that they already have. All we want as citizens, all we want as business owners, is to have a couple more cops on the street, maybe lower our utility bills, and hey, can we work out a parking deal so we can all have dinner without having to pay an arm and a leg for it? I feel like the data that you've provided is flawed, and it's flawed and skewed in a way that suits the Substance Abuse Advisory Committee. These people came up with ideas on how they could outlaw alcohol, and somehow thinking that prohibitions would lessen the effect of alcohol abuse in Columbia. That is so good that it fools the cops. 70% of these IDs come back with false positives, even when scanned. They're that good, and there's no crime for that. Why aren't we issuing a $1,000 fine for just having committed fraud in the first place? We go out of our way to train all of our staff, and many of the bars here do. They train them and they do the best they can to try to curb all these problems from happening in the first place, and yet we're taken advantage of day after day by kids who just want to go out and have a good time, right? I get it. I'll close it all down by saying I think that you're taking the wrong approach to substance abuse. We should be offering solutions. We should be finding ways to educate all the kids around us that alcohol abuse and the dangers therein. I don't think that there's any evidence to prove that these kinds of ordinances or prohibitions would somehow lessen the effects of alcohol abuse or substance abuse in the city. And all this would do would hurt small business and make it harder for us to compete in a down economy, which I think the city manager just said we're already losing a bunch of sales tax on in the first place. So why make it harder on the city and on the businesses? I would urge you to reconsider your stance on even considering this as an option.
Bob Hohenstein with the Community Improvement District downtown. I want to thank everyone, the city staff, council people, for your time this afternoon. There's just a couple quick things. Number one is, and it was brought up in one of your slides, Steve, the hospitality zone assessment. I just want to be clear that the downtown CID has never endorsed or agreed to drink specials being banned. That has never been, those things kind of get intertwined, and I want to make sure that's clear to everybody. We have not approved that, not said it's a good thing, or anything of that sort. So I want everybody to be careful when you start citing that. Number two is, I want to put ginormous dittos in front of what Dr. Peters said. The downtown CID was never contacted about this whole process. The first time I was aware of it was when Ms. Davis handed me a flyer that this meeting was taking place. My feeling is that it's just absolutely unacceptable, and that I would strongly encourage you to get the bar owners, the restaurant owners, and the downtown CID involved as you go through the future processes. Thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
I'm Dan Hoxby. I own Dog Master Distillery here in town. The address is 210 St. James Street. I don't live there, it just feels like I do. I make booze. I make intoxicating substances. And I know that. And about a year or so ago, in an effort to be a good community partner, I hosted an event where many of you were out there at the event, along with other people in the community, other interested people. And we had some conversations, and nothing really occurred of that. So what I'd like to do is, I would like to extend an offer to all people, because I have a place, I have space, I have a vested interest in the outcomes of what occurs here, and let's get people together. Let's get the police department, the law department, whoever we have, other people here, other people involved in the community. Let's get us together again and come up with some sort of a comprehensive plan that makes sense for the city of Columbia. Thank you.
My name's Glenn Laverick. I'm with the Tiger Hotel, 23 South 8th Street here in Columbia. It seems that from all angles, this has just been very poorly researched. There's no data to back up what you're trying to push forward. And it's just stark how little input people who actually matter and people who could show whether this is going to make a difference have had into this report. There's nothing in your stats, and I've read through them all, that really proves that any of this is going to work. From our point of view, the fact that there's no economic impact study that's taken place is shocking. And it really seems that that would be one of the first places to start, with a lower tax base and some of the other problems that businesses are facing with rising rents and increased development. The fact that I won't even be able to offer a wine tasting or a beer tasting to a customer just seems archaic. And it would be really a dulling of the fun that Columbia and downtown Columbia in particular has to offer. I think you need to go back to the drawing board. I think you need to look really at statistics that matter, properly weighted, and look at the efficacy of what you're trying to do, because it's clear to me that that hasn't been done. Thank you.
Lisa Banks at 1902 Mary Ellen. I think it's important to get a non-business owner's opinion, and I would like to say my real job is a court reporter, but my fun job is Uber, and I'm the first one to sign up for the downtown Uber Thursday through Sunday night. Even Sunday nights get kind of crazy, but I tell you, the reputation of Columbia from parents' night, moms, dads, families coming, is that Columbia downtown is lively at night. It's so different. You go to downtown St. Louis and it's shut down unless there's a Cardinals game. The girls bring their parents here and they shop all day and then they drink all night, and they're of age and there's nothing wrong with it, you know. And then the dads go to the football games and the whole families go together, and then they finish out their night with the downtown. And being an Uber driver, I hear it all. It's like Confessions of a Cab. You guys ever seen that? I pick up the kids, and it's the underage kids, and they will tell me anything. I pick them up, they're already drunk. They'll go to wherever, finish it off, and they're the ones throwing up in the car. And they tell me where they get their IDs. They tell me where they can use them. I know 2 places that I won't go to pick up. If I know this, I'm a peon mom, okay? I got 3 teenagers of my own. Then the police know it, then those particular business owners know it. So I don't see why you have to come up with an entire solution for the entire city when the rest of us want to party and have fun legally and within our limits. You know, I wouldn't Uber all weekend long if I thought I was in harm, if I thought I was going to get thrown up on. It is a fun thing to see everybody downtown, and I just want to be part of the community, and I really enjoy it. And we have a great reputation. They're coming from St. Louis and Kansas City and Chicago to come to our school, to come to our downtown, because we have a lot to offer, and it's a lot of fun. So that's all.
I'm Mary Dodds with Tropical Liqueurs, 515 East Broadway. And I think a lot of the comments have been directed at the sledgehammer punitive approach that seems to come. The feeling that we get as bar owners is that, you know, we're being pounced on for something that it is not really our problem. And the specials that we offer aren't anything directed at a whole pitcher for $1 or whatever. You know, the very broad interpretation of specials is not something that that really affects the underage or the excessive consumption of alcohol, in my opinion. And I think that having a group discussion with bar owners would have been, and the CID and a lot of other people who have, have real consequences to this kind of thing, rather than just coming down on us with a sledgehammer, should have been the first approach. That's my comment.